Hello, everyone. How are you all today? Are we having a nice Saturday? I don't even know what day it is anymore. That's how sad things are. I'm losing track of the day of the week. I'm losing track of so many different things. Let's just wait for a few more people to join. Still even trying to figure out the best days of the week to do this show here, which I'm enjoying a lot. Is everyone enjoying these? I really like all the feedback that I've been getting. I really like all the things that people have been talking about. It's really nice to see everyone comment. It's really nice to see all the interesting things that everyone has to say. So I'm just waiting for a few more people to join us here. Hello, Dale. Blake, hello in Scottsdale. Hello, Cassidy. So I'm going to start off with this. This is the Bulgari Diagono X Pro. Hello, Hal. Hello, Arif. Hello, Arwal. Hello, James. Hello, Jeremy. Wow, so many people. Hello, William. Yes. So one of the things that I wanted to tell everyone is the majority of these watches, not all of them, but the majority of these watches that I'm talking about in these downtime shows are watches that I have reviewed over the years on aBlogtoWatch or written an article about and things like that. So if there's something that you want more information on, or you're curious about, or simply want to dive deeper into some of these timepieces, then there's a lot of content available on aBlogtoWatch.com. So just reminding you that pretty much all of these watches have content, and we'll try to sync them up a little bit. So again, this is the Diagono X Pro, and we wrote about this today. Dale, Bulgari is a throwback. Yes, so Dale remembers that there was a limited edition version of this for the Purist Pro. Is the Purist Pro still around? Oh, thank you, Blake. I'm really glad that you like the diversity of the watches. I'm kind of obsessed with variety. It's actually sort of something in my life that is, I find it to be a theme. Like, I couldn't eat the same food every single day. I like having a variety of food, which is actually hard during this sort of COVID-19 containment thing because I have to get a little bit creative finding all the places that have takeout and stuff like that. Not all food makes not all food is good for takeout. I like ramen, for example. It's just not the same when you have soup to go. So I like variety of food. I like variety of watches. I like variety of shoes, clothing, scenery. Okay, so Dale is talking about, could I have the same woman every day? I mean, a lot of us are forced into positions of that, but naturally, we might have other desires. Someone's talking about so yesterday I talked about the standard Bulgari Diagono Scuba, which is a much more modern watch. This one is from about 10 years ago. And as Dale pointed out, there was a limited edition for the Purist Pro, which at the time, about more than 10 years ago now, it was a pretty popular place. I think that there's a lot of things that sort of replaced it, and websites like that had some problems. But it was a collection of people around the world that were pretty high-end collectors, and they had some limited editions made. And with Bulgari, they made a version of this watch. It was identical. The only difference, in addition to having some, I think, markings for them on the back, was the fact that the hour markers in the hands had a light blue color as opposed to the white color here. So this watch was a single generation watch as far as I know. There was basically one production run ever made by Bulgari. And this was, I think, a year or two before LVMH acquired them. The entire point of the X Pro, if it wasn't obvious from the way it looks, was to compete with the high-end divers, high-end sport watches that were out there, like the Hublot Big Bang, like the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Offshore, a few other things out there. And Bulgari said, hey, we want to have our take on this. So I always like thinking of this as Bulgari's Big Bang. And it's interesting that they didn't know this, but they would no longer be competing with Hublot, because when LVMH purchased them, then Hublot and Bulgari were under the same umbrella. But this watch was quite expensive, and it was way more engineered than the Big Bang. So the Big Bang has obviously evolved a lot since then, but the original 2004 Big Bang, the generation that this was more or less trying to compete with, as well as the King Power, were more simple watches than I think the Big Bang is today. And so if you were trying to compete sort of one-to-one, the Bulgari could say, oh, well, our cases have more parts and they do more things. My favorite part of this watch is the dial, which is printed, and there's applied and printing on a piece of black tinted sapphire crystal. There may be other watches out there that have sapphire crystal dials, but I don't know too many of them. And I think what's interesting about this, I actually haven't tried it, but if you shine a light on it very brightly, you might be able to see through to the movement a little bit. It's not designed for that. Luminant is great. The luminant material is great, by the way, and I love the legibility, and I just love this watch. It just really makes me happy. This is a GMT watch, so you can see here that the bezel rotates, and you have to push it down actually in order to move it. So this movement, I forgot what they called it. It was the Bulgari. It has actually the name on there, the 312, and this was a heavily modified 7750. But it doesn't even look like a 7750. That's how modified it is. I mean, if you look in there, you see a column wheel. You know, column wheel transmission is uncommon. You usually have the horizontal. Well, it's a different system. It's like it's a bunch of rods, and the column wheel's a little bit more expensive, and it's colored black there. The 7750 has also been adjusted to make it so that it has a GMT hand and that the orientation is different. And unlike the 7753, which is a movement that has this layout, the date doesn't need to have some funky little special thing here. I'm not really a big fan on the 7753 that there's a little pusher that you need to have on there. Kind of similar movement to the Tag Heuer 01 movement. Do you mean the 02 movement, which is in this watch actually? Because this Bulgari came out a long time before the Heuer 02 or what preceded it actually came out. So if we look at the movements here, when you look at them, they're quite remarkably different. So I'll just show you one more time here. This is the Tag Heuer Heuer 02, caliber 02. And this is a completely different movement and mechanism. The funny thing is that even though these movements are oftentimes different or whatever, the layout is the same and the performance is often very similar. So, you know, yes, this watch has a GMT hand and this one doesn't, but, you know, the date could be in the same place. It's at 6 o'clock here. It's between 2 hour markers here. The hour hand is actually over the date. But if you didn't know, you'd say these could be the same movement. These could be the same movement. I haven't tested these watches in terms of which one performs better, but it's interesting that there's so many movements that do sort of the same thing or have the same, you know, layout execution. The watch case of the Diagono X Pro was the Heuer 01. Isn't that the watch that or the movement that was the 1887 that was the originally the Seiko design, and then they adapted it and changed it? I don't remember. I don't know what they call that movement now. It was called the 1887, but maybe they changed it recently to the Heuer 01. Or was it Heuer 01? So I'm getting all my movements mixed up sometimes because they change the names of these things. I can't always keep track. James is saying yes. That is based upon a Seiko, so no, the movements are not actually that similar. As you can see here, it had the Diagono's typical articulating lugs. And what's interesting is you can see there's actually 2 points of articulation. There's a point right here, and there's a point right here. Okay, so yeah, so Dale's saying that the 01 is the 1887. I didn't realize that they renamed the 1887 to the 01. I do have a watch that's in my collection, the Tag, that has the 1887 in there. I can't pull it out right now because it's locked away safe, but I'll try to bring that out on a different show. Oh, wrist Ross. see how you pronounce that, is talking about the Favre Luba, which I actually still have right here. I can pick that up again for anyone who didn't get a chance to see it yesterday. Still have so much to say about the Bulgari Diagonal X Pro here. Someone is asking me about, do I like Tissot and Hamilton watches? Yeah, I mean, it depends. I don't like all Tissot and Hamilton watches, but they have some nice watches in them for sure. Let's put this on. This was like a 45 millimeter wide watch. I'm actually sad to think what'll happen when the rubber strap wears out, which could happen eventually, because, I mean, there's not going to be any easy way to replace that. That's like a good time to know that I have close contacts at Bulgari, and I can be like, hey, you remember that watch you made for 1 year a decade ago? Do you got any straps? Any straps remaining for that? That's one of the most wonderful things that some of the watch manufacturers have, is these archives of movements and parts and crystals and things like that. And sometimes they keep them for years and years and years, thinking no one will want them. But then you have things like, Rolex or Speedmaster, where the old parts, or Rolexes or Omegas, where the old parts are just taken up. And why I said Speedmaster is probably one of the only watches at Omega where the old parts are in like crazy high demand. There's probably none left. There's a thriving aftermarket, of course, for parts for Speedmasters. So again, this is the Bulgari Diagonal X Pro. Cool movements, chronometer, highly over-engineered. Case alone has over 100 parts. This is just one of the watches that I love very much because it has a great story and a great design, and I think they did a fantastic job. Let's talk about another GMT watch, a little bit more modern, a little bit more simple. This is the Laco. I think this is the Frankfurt, I believe, the Frankfurt GMT. This is a new pilot style watch from Laco. Okay, guys, I'm going to give you a little bit of a challenge. And I think this is kind of funny. Go to the Laco website right now and look up this watch. Again, this is the Frankfurt GMT. And you will notice that there's two versions of the watch. One of them has a black dial, and one of them has a gray dial. My challenge to you is to tell me, which one is this one? Is this the one with the black dial? Or is this the one with the gray dial? And I'm saying this because I honestly don't know. I think this is the one with the black dial, to be honest, and not the gray dial, but I'm not really sure. This is one of those amusing things where maybe there's like an indicator on the watch somewhere. No, I don't think there is actually, like a serial number. But this is the gray one. Are you sure about that? Are you sure about that? Because the color of this dial is gray. I don't disagree with you. I'm not saying that I can't see it. What I'm saying is that the one that they say is gray might have an even lighter gray dial. And, okay, all I'm saying to you is I've looked at it multiple times, and I'm still not 100% sure. And it's not the end of the world. It's not that big of a deal. I'm simply saying it amuses me sometimes where a watch can come out and the brand wants to have, multiple versions and offer variety, and I think that's a great thing. But then so some people think it's gray, some people think it's black. So you go to the Laco website and you're not sure. So reasonable people can disagree as to whether this is the Frankfurt GMT black or Frankfurt GMT gray. And as someone said, this might be the purple one. I'm going to go with purple. This is definitely the purple dial version. Yeah, why not? So this is nice because they combine sort of a classic aviator look that Laco is known for with some modern sensibility. And whether you like gray or black, well, here's the thing. This is why I think it's important to ask yourself whether it's the gray or the black one. Because if you want to purchase this watch, you wouldn't know which one this is. In fact, I couldn't even say in the review it's this color or this color. I'm not really sure. The hands and the hour markers are the most traditional element. And what I like about this is despite the sort of very modern look of the Frankfurt GMT, the hands are that traditional blued steel blued steel that we come to expect from the sort of vintage German aviator watches. And then you sort of add the GMT hand there and some of the modern trimmings, and you have a very nice, modern, yet traditional-looking pilot watch with a GMT hand. And I think that's pretty nice. Okay, see? I told you guys, you've gone to the website, you've noticed that something's amiss and something's weird. Yeah, so someone's mentioning something interesting here about the two crowns. And what you have here is these two opposed crowns trying to be symmetrical. Some people like this. I'm with you. I just not that big of a fan of this look. It makes sense. They've done it elegant here because they have the little crown protectors, so it doesn't look like these two little antennas sticking out. But for whatever reason, I also am not in love with this particular crown layout. It's not a deal breaker, but if you sort of want to focus on the ultimate essence of elegance, something's amiss here for me as well. Again, it's nothing against this watch. It's just sort of in general. Looks like Mickey Mouse. I hear what you're saying. I think they did a decent job. This is sort of a sandblast. It's a steel case. Sort of makes it look titanium. That nice sort of industrial sandblasted look. This watch had probably one of the nicest presentation kits I've seen from a Laco in a while. And remember, the Laco that I creative directed, the Radox, has really fancy packaging, but that's something custom that we made, and we had someone else actually do that packaging. Here you can move the inner ring, which is a GMT scale. And why would you want to do that? Well, you can move that to measure a third time zone. Okay, so this is the Laco Frankfurt GMT. It's one of their pilot watches, and I will leave it up to you to decide whether or not this is the black or the gray dial. Speaking of pilot watches, Aviate is a brand that sort of has a nice, inexpensive collection, and some of their watches are a little strange. There's an audience for them for sure, but I think this was called the Flyboy, and I haven't seen every single Aviate watch there is out there, but this one was my favorite so far. It has, I think is this a Miyota in here or Seiko? Guess we'll find out. We'll find out. That there is that a Miyota? Yeah, that's definitely a Miyota. So that's a Miyota. That's an 8 series Miyota. So that's a 3 hertz automatic, super clean. Is who an American brand? Pretty Fly for a... now you're making me think of The Offspring. So Blake has this exact watch. Yeah, I don't wear it that much either because I have like plenty of 3-hand automatic watches. But I think this is still one of the best watches that Aviate has ever done. Aviate is not an American brand. It is owned by a company called Solar Time, which is based out of Hong Kong, and they have some operations in the UK. So it's a Hong Kong brand that is run partially, I think, in the UK a little bit. And they like the sort of UK theme. They do a lot of UK theme stuff for UK military history, UK planes, but it is a Hong Kong brand. So there we go. That's this particular version of the Aviate. I like the crosshair dial. What I really liked about this watch was the use of textures. The dial has a little bit of a texture to it, like a little bit of a grain. Almost it was like sandpaper, the surface of concrete or something like that, which makes it contrast really well with the hour markers and the hands, even though the hands are polished. Yeah, you can make an argument that the hands could be longer, and that's, something that we could agree to all day long. But overall, I still think this is one of the best ones they did. And it was very inexpensive. This was just a few $100s or something like that. Okay, so moving on. By the way, guys, in these and future episodes, I really want to spend as much time as possible answering your questions and your thoughts about watch collecting in general and just sort of what you see out there and stuff like that. So if you want to go on a little tangent and have me talk about whatnot, I'm definitely happy to do that anytime. Sorry, I'm just rearranging my stuff out here. People like saying, oh, I like the look of your desk and all the watches on there, and then I feel like it's all very, very messy. Boy, what do I want to talk about next? Let's do a few more blasts from the past. I'm not going to spend too much time about this. Bremont is nice. I have some Bremonts. That's a whole other discussion. That's a can of worms right there. But Bremont watches in general are nice. Yes, there's a Grand Seiko there. I wanted to bring this out because this is like a little interesting piece of modern history. This is the Citizen Proximity. And this was the first watch they came out with, which is an analog watch that had Bluetooth connectivity. No, there's not there. This is not a Campagnola. I do have a Campagnola, Campagnola is one of my first nice watches, actually. So the problem with this watch is it looked cool, but it never really worked well, meaning the connectivity to your phone was off. It was really spotty. And the first few generation of watches that had Bluetooth connectivity that were not full-on smartwatches like an Apple Watch always had these issues where you get a notification, it really, really wouldn't show up here. So, okay, show the Campagnolo. It's Campagnola. I don't know what a Campagnolo is. Yeah, okay, so proximity. What about social distancing? Well, I was just going through my stuff and I found this one. This is an Eco Drive and the batteries died a while ago. What's that yellow thing in the background, Jeremy asks? Well, there's two yellow things. There's my undone black and yellow. This is the aqua black and yellow that I creative directed. So this is my design, which I love. I still love the hell out of this thing. People forget that this is a steel watch and it's Cerakote, so it's very, very heavy. Oh, is Campagnolo a cycling thing? Yeah, Zach is super into cycling. I like cycling as well, but he's like the cycling nerd of the aBlogtoWatch team. So I rode my bike yesterday for like 2.5 hours, and I remember during that time I had like 10 questions. I was like, I bet Zach would know the answer to that. I bet Zach would know the answer to that. Little things like when you have a disc brake and the rotor rubs against the brakes, like how do you stop that? You flatten out the rotor. Even the tiniest rubbing drives me nuts. Neo is saying, hello, humanity. Humanity is smiling back at you from collected confinement. Anyways, I wanted just to go over a little bit more the proximity here because I think Citizen was trying to do something really cool here. I like the shape of this watch. It was kind of on the bigger side. Actually, because it's Eco Drive and the dial is meant to allow light to go through, it reminds me a little bit of the sapphire crystal dial here. So one is an Eco Drive dial that's made of plastic to allow light to enter, one sapphire crystal, but you get a little bit of that look here, and the colors were nice. Everything about this watch was well-intentioned and made sense, except for the fact that, it just didn't connect to your phone very well. So if you just wanted to wear this watch as like, just this cool Citizen Eco Drive, you could do that. Again, the hands are lined up that way because the battery has died, but I think this is a watch that you could go back to and wear with a lot of the functionality that you expect and just forget about the the phone connectivity part. I don't know when it's going to be, but I predict that in the future at some point, these types of quartz watches are going to be sort of collectible again. And I don't know what that's going to be like with the technology and the history the batteries and stuff like that, because these batteries are not meant to live forever. And they're not necessarily meant to be replaced. So is that something that users can do? Is that something that Citizen's going to do? The other yellow object, what does it look like? This is an air blower for photographers. And if you are doing certain types of photography and you want to blow off dust, you use this to blow dust off of things. And I find that for watch photography or whatever, this is a very effective tool because you have to realize that just a little speck of dust on something leaves quite a mark, and we can sometimes remove that digitally, but it's very smart to remove dust. So I'm constantly blowing on watches with a device like this to get rid of dust, and that's what this is. So this is a one-way valve, and then this tube helps directionalize it. Yes, the little specks suck. I've seen a lot of professional photography or from so-called professionals that have dust all over the place on there, and it irritates me. And sometimes it's not even our fault. Sometimes there's dust underneath the crystal, and the brand just sort of left it there, and there's nothing we can do about that except try to digitally remove it. What are my thoughts on Rolex clones? Jay, that's a whole topic right there. I talked a little bit about that yesterday. In general, here's my thoughts on sort of Rolex Submariner clone. The Submariner itself is an expensive watch, but it's a nice style. You shouldn't have to spend $10,000 just to see what wearing, a Rolex style watch feels like. So I think that it's great to buy an homage, clearly not a counterfeit. Don't ever buy anything that says Rolex, but something that looks kind of similar, you know, same size, same color, same design, to see if you like it, it's for you. And then based upon that experience, you can go ahead and say, okay, I like this, I can buy one later. Name some recent watch models destined to be highly collectible. You can have me do all the hard work for you? Yeah, I'm not going to do that because that's going to take all the fun out of this hobby, isn't it? No one tells me, hey, Ariel, these are the next watches to look into. I got to do the hard stuff. So this is an Orient. This is a Japanese watch, and this is one of their not the saturation diver. The saturation diver is a little bit more water intensive or water resistant. The 300 meters. This is the 200 meter one. This is, I think they call this the M Force or something like that. Yeah, it says, does that say M Force? It says M Force on there. So this is the M Force diver. In-house made movement with a power reserve indicator, automatic. I like that one. Bezel is not always to my taste here, but I like that they were trying to do something different. I have the original saturation diver that this was based upon, has the same movement, and Orient still makes a version of this, which is a little bit more classic. And I think the point of talking about these is sort of a lot of watch for the money. And so again, this is the M-Force version of it that I thought was pretty nice. And again, a lot of watch for the money in general. I just redefined the stand. Is that a good thing? I hope so. There's a lot of cool Orient watches out there. Some of them are weird. They used to make a rainbow watch that I thought was... Do I have a Sin 756? Really interesting you mentioned that because for a long time I wanted a 757, which I believe has the rotating bezel, and the 756 has a non-rotating bezel, or I might be making that up. But no, I do not have that Zin. I was going to actually bring a Zin on the show, but I'll do it another time. Do I have a custom Rolex, Artisan de Genève? I don't have one of those, but I've seen them. They're really nice. They're really quite nice. Expensive, though. Expensive, though. Let's keep going through Blast from the Past here. Oh, this is fun. Thought on Weiss watches? I mean, look, you know, it's a company based here in LA, and I'm from LA, and so it's cool to see LA on the dial. I don't know, they're not that interesting to me. It's just a field watch, you know. I have plenty of those things. I don't need to spend $2,000 on a field watch. If you're into that design and you want an LA product, it's, you know, it's a nice watch. It's not like made in a factory somewhere. It's, you know, the promise is true, I guess. So Orient was a Japanese watch, and this is a Chinese watch. Any Omegas in the pile? Not this pile. I had some Omegas yesterday. I can bring out some more Omegas next time. This is a Longio, and this watch is interesting because it's a Chinese brand, but it has a Swiss ETA movement in there. So it's kind of an interesting, like, I don't want to say backwards product, but a lot of times you had Swiss watch brands that have Asian movements in there. Here you have an Asian watch brand that proudly has a Swiss-made movement in there. I don't necessarily know where these were sold. Yes, someone's asking if that is a mother of pearl on the dial, on the periphery there. That's exactly what that is. So I like this. I like the size. It was kind of big. I like the Dauphine hands that had the lume on there. And of course, I loved the mother of pearl on there. Yeah, the dial is cool, isn't it? It's a little bit thick, but you see here how they did these interesting lines on the side, and what these do, these horizontal lines, they help reduce the visual mass. And there's all kinds of tricks that designers can play. I do have an Alexander Chorokov. Again, it's in storage, and that's where a lot of my watches are. So before these episodes, I select a few watches, so I can't just go grab it. But if somebody wants to see the Chorokov, I can do that. Zetum, there's another brand I have a few of. So someone thinks that Alexander Chorokov watches will become highly collectible. Maybe. He makes some really cool stuff. I like that brand a lot. It's a little quirky. The Red Star Dual Time watch. I'm not sure if I know what that one is. Someone asked about that. All right, so let's put this Longio on. Longio, I have another Longio watch that is their... I think it wasn't my first tourbillon, but it was one of the first tourbillons I had, and it was it's a Chinese tourbillon diver. So it's a 1,000 meter Chinese tourbillon, and I have to find that watch. It's insane. It's so crazy, and that's a Longio as well. So this watch was pretty big as a dress watch. So I think this was like a, I don't know, 44 millimeters wide. That's what I'm guessing. So it was a little bit big for your standard dress watch, but at the time when this came out, stuff like this was fashionable. I'm not even sure where I would wear this, but I don't know. I thought it was really nice looking. Does Longio, I don't know. Go to the Longio website and see what they got going on right now. There's another Longio watch called the June. I believe that's how it was pronounced, and it was a bronze watch. It was actually probably my first bronze watch. It was really nice. So this is I forget the name of this one, but this is their dress. This was a dress watch with a Swiss-made ETA 2824 automatic movement in there, which, again, I thought that was really interesting that you have this very proudly Chinese brand, but you got the benefit of having, a Swiss automatic movement there. So it doesn't say Swiss made on the dial because it's not technically a Swiss made watch because it's assembled and checked in China, but it does have a Swiss made automatic movement in there. And this was a limited edition of 500 apparently. This is watch number 2 out of 500. That's actually interesting. ZRC, I saw someone said that. Those are kind of cool. Ivan has asked me what my preferred watch size is. That's a very good question. I would say between about 40 to 44 millimeters is the average that I wear. And so if you wanted to average it out, it'd be 42. So I guess that's what my preferred size would be. But on the table here, we have sizes from 45 millimeters all the way down to 39. This is, I don't think this was ever officially sold in America. Maybe it was. This is a Seiko, a Grand Seiko, and this is, I actually bought this in Japan. This has the 9F movement in there. This watch right here had an automatic version as well that was a little bit thicker. It had a white dial as well as the black one, and then there was a limited edition that had, I want to say, like a yellow seconds hand that was really, really rare. This one, I love the case shape. This was sort of their anti-magnetic watch. This was like the Seiko Milgauss, basically. Triple sign dial, huh? Does this one say? Yeah, so this one says magnetic resistant on there. Beautiful, time only, symmetrical. I love that even though this is 39 millimeters wide, you can see here there's relatively broad lugs, and the flanks are thick, so it has a little bit more of a masculine look to it. Also a little bit more of a sporty bracelet, but I love here how the edges are polished and curved a little bit there. So when I first saw this watch, I was in love with it, and then I was lucky enough to be in Japan one time, and I got this. Someone said, does it have a cool feature when the battery is low? No, it's just what happens is the second hand will jump 2 spots in a row, so it will move once every 2 seconds, and that's how you know that the battery is dying. The battery has died on this watch a few times, maybe twice, and I've replaced it, and it hasn't been that big of a deal. And then I've had nothing but good things to say about the 9F movements. I'm really in love with them. And then I guess you could say the competitor to the 9F right now is really the Citizen Caliber 0100. And remember, these movements, were not released anywhere near the same time, so Seiko might step it up a little bit. It's not that one is better than the other. The 0100 is more accurate because it uses a different system. Both of them have anti-whiplash seconds hands that hit directly on the mark. So you can see there that they really have no whiplash and such a nice, elegant look to them. Once you see a seconds hand like this, I don't think it's possible to go back. And people were talking about quartz yesterday because I had a lot of quartz watches. And when you see the operation of a high-end quartz watch like this, you just can't go back. Oh, and I think it's important to say that both these watches are roughly the same diameter. But you can see what a big difference it makes to have these sort of broader lugs. So the Citizen, which is a completely different watch, it's titanium, it's a very different watch. But this one's a little bit under 39, but basically let's call it 39. Yes, the times are off. I apologize. That I know. Sometimes I move the hands and stuff like that for photography. Don't look at any of these watches thinking that, like, I think this one might be set on the right time actually. So this one is about 39, and then we'll wear this one as well that's also about 39, and you can see how it wears a little bit bigger. And so the case shape has so much to do with how the watch wears. Just two fantastic Japanese watches. I have to say that I'm more excited about Japanese watches than probably anything else if you had to ask me. I have a very big soft spot in my heart for all Japanese watches, and I've found over the years that, like, getting a new Casio G-Shock to review oftentimes excites me than, you know, a watch that's multiple times the price that's like a Swiss mechanical. Not that I don't like them, but always have a very big place in my heart for fine Japanese timepieces. Someone is talking about the one that looks like a Breitling, probably a Breitling. This is a Marvin. This was probably one of my favorite watches that Marvin ever made. I don't remember the name of this one. It was like M something. Maybe it's on here. Let's see. Marvin is a brand that is no longer with us. It was a revival of an old brand that came back for a little bit. Had some good people behind it, but couldn't really cut it too much. Again, I forgot the name of this, but I think they did such a nice job of having a combination of a sporty dial, 7750. This watch was like, wasn't too much. I think it was like somewhere between $1,000 and $2,000. And again, not a perfect watch. I'd say that maybe some of the textures on the dial could have been a little bit better. The case is a little on the big side. But again, I think for the money, this was a lot of watch. I don't know, you know, like what you can find in terms of Marvin watches right now, but I think that the brand was ahead of its time in a lot of ways. Did some cool stuff. You can see on the side there's like a little Marvin, the old Marvin logo there on the side of the case. They had a lot of nice little details like that. So as you can see here, this is a little bit on the big side. What was this? Was this 43 millimeters wide? Maybe 44? And technically I would refer to this watch as being too large for my wrist, because you can see that the lugs actually extend past my wrist. So this watch would violate my own personal rules a little bit about what is too big. But I just thought the colors were nice on here. You got, you know, a little accent, a little yellow, a little red, of course the black and the white. I thought there was sort of a nice modern take on the traditional watch dial there. So this was a nice one. Not perfect, but a nice one. And I miss brands like this, because I think that these days, if they were able to invest, a brand like this could do pretty well. So Marvin was a bit ahead of their time. Unfortunately, couldn't make it. I don't think they were able to do it in a volume, but nice watch. Let's see any other blast from the past stuff. Well, before that, let me pick up the Sea King again, because somebody asked to see that. I talked about this extensively the other day. This is a 41 millimeter wide steel watch from Swiss Favre Luba. I like this one a lot because it's I think what the price, it was 1,950 Swiss francs, so a very affordable price for a steel watch. It's very distinctive, nicely made, just super cool. I love the style here because it's conservative enough to be worn as a daily watch. It's easy to read. It's not like weird, but it has a really crazy look to it that just has a lot of personality. So it's everything you want in a tool watch, plus personality and distinction and originality. Few people have them. And for me, that's what I look for a lot, you know? I would think that somebody out there in the world wearing something like this would be a pretty interesting person. Favre Luba, that's right, Blair. What is my collecting philosophy? Joseph Necht. I think aBlogtoWatch is really a manifestation of me talking about my collecting philosophy. So I think one of the things that I found is practicality is very important to me. I don't like watches that are priced in excess of their inherent value. So that's something I try to look for. It's not that I don't like watches at a certain price point, but I feel like if you're spending $5,000 on a watch, you should get $5,000 worth of watch. And because there's so many options out there for $5,000, don't just go with, you know, necessarily the first thing that attracts your attention. A second thing that I find is I only like legible watches. So legibility in the dial and being able to read the time are crucial for me. I pointed it out before, and I'll point it out again, that the majority of the watches that I wear or have featured on this downtime series have been quite legible. Anyways, let me go back to this watch right here, which is the Breitling. This is the Super Ocean Heritage. This is the new generation of 3-hand and 42 millimeters. Oh, let me quickly go back to my philosophy on collecting. So I like good inherent value, legibility, and I think the last thing I would say is I personally don't like it when I have something that a lot of other people have. And I'll give you a very good example. I remember living in San Francisco in the sort of mid-2000s when the Apple iPod first came out. And the Apple iPod had these white earbuds. Nothing else at the time had white earbuds. And so you had all these people walking around with white earbuds, and it signified that I had that person had an Apple iPod. And I remember distinctly thinking, simply because there's so many people wearing these white earbuds, I don't want to wear white earbuds. I would wear any other color or anything else, but I don't want the white ear ones. And so I like to stay away from what everyone else is doing almost as a habit. I couldn't explain why that is per se. Maybe it's just because I like to be different or unique. It's part of my psychology. But if I'm wearing something that other people wear, I'm not really that interested in it. I do like watches being an expression of who I am, of my taste, of my experience. And so I am someone that doesn't feel like I belong in too many places. I feel very much like an individual, and I often feel misunderstood. And I want my watches to, in their own classy way, signify that I might not be on the same wavelength as everyone else. And I'm okay with that. I don't mind being, a little bit of a loner that way, especially when it comes to my ideologies. But I don't want my watch to tell people that I am necessarily in the same club as them. Yes, I am a rebel. I am, to a fault, I am a rebel. So when Breitling updated the Super Ocean Heritage, I'm an explorer. Yeah, I am out of the herd. That's a whole other discussion right there, I gotta say. So anyways, when Breitling updated the Super Ocean Heritage, in addition to adding the ceramic bezel, they added a couple of interesting features to the watch. And this one, I believe, has the Tudor movement in there. So this is, is this the one with the Tudor movement? I believe it is. So I don't think they say it in here, but this one has the Tudor movement. It says edition special back here. I don't know what that means. It's not a limited edition. And Breitling makes the Super Ocean Heritage. They made it a bunch of different sizes, but 42 is not the biggest size. They've made... Oh, siren's going by. Richie Luxury, no Pateks. Again, people who ask for Rolex, Patek Philippe, or Audemars Piguet, what I say to them is, does YouTube not already have enough for you? Are there not enough watches out there on YouTube videos that have those things? I mean, everyone says that that's what the internet is completely full of. People who actually own those or pretend to. So why would I show the same stuff again and again and again and again? I would like some Longays, for example. Those are not a watch that I own right now. Longay is beautiful. I have a lot of that. I don't want every single watch, but I'll probably add a Longay to my collection at some point. I'm just not in a rush. That's the thing. There's so many good watches out there. I'm not in a rush. I can see a watch that I love and be like, you know what? It's on the list, sometimes permanently, and I don't necessarily need to buy it right now. There's so many watches that I'm playing with all the time that make me happy. I don't really feel compelled to go out there and get some type of status watch. And I'm quite against the notion of having status watches, because what people do is they don't spend years figuring out why a Patek might be nice. They're just like, people like this brand, it's respected, I'll buy it. And then if people see it on me, they think I'm sophisticated too. But that's not really how it is. You need years of experience to understand why a Rolex is a good watch or why a Patek is a good watch. You should not immediately go to those. And so you have what I call the top 10 effect. And the top 10 effect is people go online and they'll read like somebody's list of the top 10 this or the top 10 that. And they're like, oh, I'm going to buy number one, or I'm going to get one which is on the list. I'm super cool because, I own one of the watches that someone out there says is part of the top 10. But the person buying it doesn't know why it's good. If you can't explain why your watch is great, or why your car is great, or why your shoes or your motorcycle or your bicycle or your boat or your house is great, why do you have it? Buy things you understand. If you don't understand it, get what you do understand. Stop trying to pose as though you are more of a distinguished gentleman than you actually are. I'm glad people responded well to my sentiments. So this is a different Breitling. This is the Chronomat 44 GMT. Do I think that the Citizen 0100 is worth the money? It's a very sophisticated watch with a lot of technology. Look, it's over $7,000. I can understand why people will be like, is that overpriced? It's not your typical Citizen price. But remember, Campagnolas and certain other types of watches that Citizen makes are that price. So it's really just a matter of perspective. This watch came in a few different sizes. The biggest one was 47 millimeters wide, and this is the 44. Man, people really want some Campagnola. I will go out there and bring my Campagnola for one of the shows. The battery was dead in mine for the longest time, and I actually took it to Citizen Japan to replace the battery, and so I hope it's still working now, because I want you to hear the recording of a minute repeater. So this is so amazing what this watch did. And I couldn't appreciate it at the time because I actually bought this watch before I ever heard what an actual minute repeater sounds like. But on the Campagnola, not this Breitling, the particular one I have, I think they called it the Grand Complication, you push a button and you hear the sounds of a minute repeater sounding as though it was like an actual hammer hitting gongs, but there's a little speaker in there. And it sounds very identical. It sounds really good. So it's like this, it's a synthetic minute repeater. It's really cool. Someone's talking about Moser. Moser makes really nice movements. My one concern with Moser watches is the fact that their dials are topped with a crystal that isn't as AR coated as I like, and there's a lot of glare. And so I feel that a lot of watches are diminished when there's too much glare in the crystal. Actually, this Breitling is a pretty good example of how to do a domed sapphire crystal and not have too much glare. So if I had a Moser, or at least most Mosers, there'd just be glare all over the place here. So if you see most of these watches, I also like watches that hate glare. So going back to my philosophy about collecting, too much glare in a watch just makes it look cheap. You go, some people like saying mall kiosk watch. Go to a mall kiosk watch, and if it's actual one with a sapphire crystal, move it around in the lights of the mall, and you'll see glare like crazy. And that's cheap. So if you're buying a watch that's H. Moser priced, don't have a crystal that looks like it came from a mall kiosk watch, is all I'm saying. Some of the new sports watches by Moser are really cool. I have nothing but good things to say about the brand. I like most of their stuff. I disagree with some things they do, but there's no brand that I universally stand behind. Akrivia is great. I've been to Rexhep's workshop in Geneva. I've known him for a long time. I've known him since right after he left B&B Concept, which was a really important maker of movements that shut down in around 2007. B&B Concept was started by a guy named Matthias Boutet, and Jean-Claude Biver actually saved them. So he purchased all of B&B Concept, and he hired Matthias, who was responsible for making a lot of Hublot's crazy movements and things like that. If you remember, there was that one movement that they made, I forgot the name of it, but like it sped up time and slowed down time. That was an invention by Matthias. So Rexhep from Akrivia worked underneath Matthias and was one of those genius watchmakers that knew how to do traditional finishing, but also knew how to create original movements and things like that. So nothing but good things to say about them. I mean, they're not for everyone, but definitely top quality. It's a Nubeo. A stop to go? I do have a stop to go. How do you know that? This is not a stop to go. A stop to go is the Mondaine. So I'm just catching up on all these comments here. Mr. Jones watches. That's a whole other conversation. So this is a Nubeo. This is a rare two-tone one. Who's going to write the JCB biography? You want to know what? I actually told him I would write it. I did. I went to him. I was like, so for someone to write a book about you, they have to understand you. Look, a lot of people offer to write books about Mr. Biver, and there's probably a lot of people that are more qualified writers in general. But I don't know that there's anyone that would be able to explain his specific success in the watch world like me. I think there's a lot that can be said about him that I wouldn't necessarily be able to do the best, but there's a lot of things that I don't think other people will be able to convey particularly well. So Nubeo is, as people know, one of my favorite brands that doesn't exist anymore, and it is the brainchild of a designer, Spanish designer named Ivan Castro. And one of the things that I think is important to say about Nubeo is that the unfortunately late Mr. Kobe Bryant was an investor of Nubeo, and they had a watch that they were going to make for him called the Black Mamba that did actually never see the commercial light of day, which was unfortunate. But this is a brand that was a victim of the last financial crisis. And Ivan Castro still works in the watch industry today at a different brand. And the sad thing is that the Nubeo brand actually got purchased by Solar Time. So if you remember, this is a small world. So the same people that own Aviate now own the Nubeo name and have been making some modern Nubeo watches that look nothing like the old ones, are nothing like the old ones, are not watches that I personally would be interested in. But I don't know that I ever would have thought that this watch brand name was owned by the people that own this brand today, which, again, is just coincidence. I didn't even think about that when I was choosing these watches, but it's just sort of a small world. This watch was lovingly over-engineered and designed to look like a jellyfish from the side. And one of the things that I think that you can appreciate is the fineness of the tolerances. So you have steel and gold here, but you see how these parts are just so flush together? This watch was obsessive when it came to tolerances. You have this rubber strap that has these segments in here. And this was popular at the time. So these watches came out around the same time. And you can see that they look like they were kind of cousins. And I think it's very interesting because you say to yourself, oh, these brands, they do their own thing. They don't look at one another. Can you honestly not say to me that these watches are born of the same ethos? What does the strap say? I don't know. What does the strap say? Let's see here. Do I ever get in trouble for releasing new Rolex watches? They don't tell us. They don't tell. It's a guarded secret. That's actually one of the biggest questions I have for this year is where the hell am I going to see new Rolex watches? Looks like an expensive Invicta. That's not saying something nice about Nubeo. It might look, if you don't know watches at a glance, yes, it looks like a little crazy. I'm not sure what's going on here. And I can see what you're saying. This is not for everyone. If you don't like this watch, that's totally okay. This is a really out there watch. You know that I have particularly eccentric tastes. I'm not going to be offended if you don't like this watch. I do, and that's all that matters to me. This watch used a 7750 automatic movement, which is a chronograph, as you know. Why did they use a chronograph for a non-chronograph watch? Well, they just wanted to have the subsidiary seconds hand here, and it was a good, robust movement, so they just took out all the chronograph parts. So that is the Nubeo. I think I actually forgot the name of this model. It doesn't matter. This was the Medusa, I think. How does Rolex keep its those things secret? I don't know. That's a whole other question. It's a whole other question. I am a bit of a Nubeo collector, so I have a few of them, and it's definitely a brand that I admire quite a bit. This is, again, one of the fancier ones. Heavy watch because of all the gold. Speaking of two-tone, I talked about this a few days ago, but I've just been wearing it a lot, actually. Well, it seems like I'm not because the time isn't moving right here. One of the things is, like, I get sick of setting dates correctly, so oftentimes the date on my watches are wrong. Because I go through so many watches, it's just too annoying to have to set the date all the time. But this is the Karl F. Bucherer Petravi Scuba Tech the two-tone version, which is actually one of the original ones that came out, but this is quite rare. So it's 45 millimeters wide ceramic bezel. ETA 2892 automatic movement there, chronometer certified. So it's not their in-house movement, but doesn't need to be. And I don't actually know if the mantas were part of the original case spec or that was added a little bit later, because they have the manta trust relationship, and they made. Oh, someone's talking about the Basel Rolex releases. Yeah, there's been some leaks here and there. Sometimes they're mistakes. I remember years ago we got in trouble with Tudor because someone else had released information in advance, and then we talked about it, and they got all pissy with us for the longest time. It was like, it's not like we did it, and we didn't even know that it was unofficial. When did I start collecting? About 2001 or so, maybe 2002, around then. If you didn't see, this watch has a fantastic deployant clasp here. It reminds me a little bit about what Breitling's been doing, but this is a little bit different. There is a diver's extension on this side, and then there is a micro adjust here. So you have all the functionality you want. And then this is an automatic helium release valve, but you'll never use that. Nice bezel action, by the way. I'm not sure if you all can hear that. It's funny, though, because I don't actually put an enormous amount of time into thinking about the assortment of these watches. But then as I look at them all together, it's interesting to see how they there's themes here. So, for example, like the Nubeo and the Aviate, how the same parent company now owns the Nubeo name. Or I have two-tone watches. It's just interesting to see here like how these things come together when I didn't intend any particular assortment. We got one more watch here, and this is a Tiffany & Company CT60 chronograph. Tiffany & Company was just purchased by LVMH. CBF, yes, Atomic Blonde. There was a lot of Carla Buchereres in there. They have a lot of movie placements, and don't forget John Wick, Rambo. Do I have a spring drive? Do I have GMT? I mean, there's a GMT right here. That's a GMT. Look, it says on the dial. Proof, it's a GMT. Yes, I have some Zinn. Well, again, this is episode number 9? And we're going to be in captivity for how long? I mean, look, I'm going to do at least 25 or so of these episodes before we reevaluate and say what to do next. Hello there from Austria. Hello. Well, I'm not in Austria. I'm in Los Angeles. Is everyone doing okay in confinement? I said CFB quality is much better than Omega. I didn't necessarily say much better, but I said your average CFB watch, to me, feels better, especially the bracelets. Omega is like hit and miss on bracelets sometimes, and your standard Carla Bucherer bracelet, far better, far better. The yellow watch. This one, this is the Undone Aqua. This is not PVD. This is Cerakoted steel. So yes, I'm going to do at least 25 of these episodes, and then we'll see what it is. I want to do more Q&A, meaning I want to have more of you ask questions, maybe as comments, or maybe just email me privately, and I'd like to answer them. I've done a couple of Reddit AMAs, and AMA stands for Ask Me Anything. And what I'll basically do is I'd be on this forum, and then people, put in their questions, and then I answer. And what people don't know is the last 2 Reddit AMAs I've done, I've spent something like 8 hours on each of them answering questions. I put in an enormous amount of time, and I take the questions quite seriously. Anyways, going back to this Tiffany & Company CT60 chronograph. This is one of the CT60s. I believe they still make this watch. As I said, Tiffany & Company was just purchased by LVMH, and nobody has any idea what's going on with that. Even Tiffany has no idea what's going on with that, even LVMH. So this is an ETA movement, I believe. This was a 7750 that was modified. I just thought this was very nicely done. This came in different versions on the bracelet, on the strap. I want to say something about this particular watch as a recommendation. If you have smaller wrists like me, always get the CT60 on the bracelet. I'll tell you why. Look at those lugs. The connection point for the strap is somewhere in the middle. And so what ends up happening is if you have the strap and your wrists are smaller, the strap will go down, and there'll be these points, these sort of like horns that come out because of the lugs, their size. So right here you don't have that because it's all connected together and it's elegant, but on the strap it's a little bit different. Looks like a president bracelet. It's its own unique thing, and each of the individual links has sort of a flat-topped pyramid, which creates this very nice way it plays with the light. This is sort of a jewelry style approach. Let me just wipe it down there a little bit more. And I just thought this was very, very excellent. Was Richie Luxury supposed to respond when I said horns? Is that like an inside joke? I don't know. Horns. Does Archie Luxury say that in a funny way or something like that? I wish I was actually in Australia, because I would love to do a show with Paul, like just to keep everyone entertained. We could do some crazy stuff. I don't know what we could do, but the way we could play off one another's chemistry would be kind of fun. Archie has horns. Archie has horns? Is that maybe I like he doesn't like? Does he literally have horns? Like, I'm confused. We've done a show together. If people want to search on the YouTube channel, I did a whole big interview with him where we talked. We did it for everyone. That was a controversial episode. My team got so upset. They're like, "Why are you validating this guy?" I'm like, "Archie's a nice guy." This is a modified edit movement in here. Someone's asking about that. I think this is a chronometer one. I just thought they did a great job on here. Conservative, not necessarily for like your rank and file watch collector, but this is a great watch. Really nice one. I also have the 3-hand version of the CT60, which is 40 millimeters wide. This one's 42 millimeters wide. But again, like these watches come out, watch collectors don't pay attention to them, and then I have to actually meet with the brand, look at it, and be like, "You guys did a good job." And I have to go to the collecting community and be like, "Guys, I get that it says Tiffany and Company. I know they sell, sterling silver bracelets for teenage girls. I get all that. Just don't think about that. That's not what they've made. This isn't that type of product. This is a nice Swiss-made timepiece," and they did a good job. What will happen with Tiffany watches in the future? I don't know. They'll still make watches. I mean, it'll be silly for them not to, but who's going to be running the division, what they're going to be selling now that they have ownership under LVMH. I have no idea, because remember, they exist within a framework of Hublot and Zenith and Tag Heuer and Bulgari and Dior. So kind of like they do in Richemont, though not nearly as severe, I think LVMH wants its brands not to compete with one another. So it can't compete with Tag. It can't compete with Hublot. Zenith and Bulgari would probably be the places where it would sort of more immediately compete. And so it's unclear to know a little bit about sort of where Tiffany's company go. I have a few Tiffany & Company watches I've collected over the years. Big fan. Brisbane is in lockdown. That's how they call it. We're all in lockdown. If you're in the first world city, you're probably in lockdown. If you're not already, you might very well be soon. Okay, everyone. That's it. That's our hour. I'm really happy that everyone came and spent time chatting with me about watches. Again, this has been the Downtime 2020 series. This is episode number 9. Pretty much all of these watches have articles about them on aBlogtoWatch.com, and you can go there and read more about it. I love answering your questions. You guys know I love to talk. So that's why doing this is not too much of a challenge for me. And when I say this, I mean basically talking all day for a living, either writing or actually speaking to you. It brings me a lot of joy. Where in LA? I'm in the West Hollywood area, or in West Hollywood. William is asking me lots of fair questions about the amount of watches I own. I don't know. Nobody knows. Okay, guys, have a great rest of your day. Keep healthy out there. Keep sane. Keep the watch love real and strong, and I'll see you later. Bye, everyone.